but I like to compare. So American football is like classical music, right? Where there's a score, there's like everything's predetermined, and football, world football, is like jazz.
Hello and welcome to another episode of FPL Escapades. I'm Kshitij and I'm joined by my usual suspects Akshay and Anand, and along with us is a really special guest, somebody who looks at FPL and football from a different perspective or a different lens, I'd rather say. Gabriel, also known as FPL Lens on Twitter, welcome and thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. It's an absolute honor. How are you? How is your FPL season going, and how is your life in general?
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, it's I've been watching your VODs for a little while now, and I'm quite excited to be on here. And I'm doing well. It's quite an interesting time here in the United States. It's election day, so hopefully the what's best for everybody happens today. Without getting into too many specifics here, we're here to talk about FPL. So um, my season isn't going. I would like it to be going better, but I'm not worried at all. I think I'm very confident in my process still. And I do think this season, because of the surprises and the changes and COVID and internationals and all that, I do think it's even more important to stay kind of beneath all of the turbulence of the waves and keep that and stay kind of in that process, kind of below water a little bit. So I'm confident in my process. My OR right now is 1.9 million, and I've bounced around from like 800K to 2.4 million. And I think one good week and I'm in top 1 million, and then I can build from there. So I'm happy with my process. I'm confident in where my team is now, and I'm excited. For game week 8 to finish, so I'm really itching to hit the wild card.
Oh, you haven't played your wild card yet, is it?
uh, the plan was always a second international break, and it's here, and I'm not desperate. I think my team is fine. I did okay, a 62. Thankfully, Bellerin comes in off the bench for Saiz, with 12 points. Bellerin, one of the picks I'm most proud of this season. I started with the guy, and now everyone's getting him. So I haven't hit it, but I've already tinkered for my wild card, and the game week's not even over. It hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. I for one played my wild card after game week 2. Rage played my wild card after game week 2, ended up scoring 34. So that was a week to forget. And interestingly enough, we're recording it on election day. And interestingly enough, you and Anand are wearing neutral colors, wherein Akshay is in red, I'm in blue. So I think that in its entirety sets the tone for the day as well. Anand, how has your game week 7 been after a ridiculous game week for me personally, and like only a couple of players actually performing? How did it go for you?
38 points and I pass. I don't have anything to say after that game week.
Makes sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
literally, no points. Like I had Grealish, that's it. Like, yeah, nothing
Someone
else.
actually ended up saving your game week for that matter. Akshay, how was your game week 7? Did you fare well, or were you on the same boat like Anand?
Not quite there, but ended up with 49 points. Thankfully, Salah captain paid off, so he was accidentally the highest points getter in my team as well. So glad to get the captaincy right for a change. And I think I completely agree with what Gabriel mentioned. Like this FPL season will be a test of patience for all managers. There's no point making rage transfers. Yeah.
Absolutely right. So there's something to take away, I think, that from the previous 7 game weeks that already have happened. I mean, the turbulence, like Gabriel mentioned, in the current FPL season is something that we haven't really seen earlier in any of the FPL seasons. So I think patience is the key to, maybe a successful game week. And you never know, one successful game week and you're up in 500K or in under a million. So that is something to go on for. And yeah, Gabriel, I hope and the boys, I hope you all are ready to dive into our essential picks for going into game week 8. Who better to start off with the one and only Jamie Vardy, who's, I think the Vardy, it's safe to say that the Vardy party is back indeed, with him scoring a goal, giving a couple of assists, a total of 14 points with bonuses as well. Uh, and I know a certain someone who transferred in Aguero in the previous game week, took a -4, got Vardy in, and it paid back. So I think the hype is real, and we all might certainly see a surge in transference for Jamie Vardy. Gabriel, I'd like to start off with you, and get your insights of who do you think would be essential picks in terms of FPL going into game week 8 and further.
So I think game week 8, the essential picks. I mean, every game week, the essential pick is whoever plays West Brom, right? It's that part of it is, as far as there are so many unpredictables in the FPL season so far. The one thing I think we can bank on is with death, taxes, and West Brom is terrible. So I think the essential picks are Kane for sure, and Son. But if we're just talking, are we just talking forwards right now, or just kind of
any essential any person that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I would say from the forwards, it's Kane. I'm not sure about Vardy for game week 8, just because of their opponent. Their opponent does not leave much space in behind, and it'll be Vardy against those 3 center backs. So perhaps a midfielder in that game. Wolves have not been the stout defense that they were last season, so maybe somebody just in front of that back 3. But again, as far as, I wouldn't classify any of them as essential just yet. Kane up front and Son in the midfield. As far as essential goes, I would throw Reguilon in there if I knew he were starting. We don't know that, so he was rested, I believe, last weekend. So now he's a rotation risk. Those are probably the 2 that stand out to me.
Interestingly enough, you say West Brom, they definitely have been leaky, but they haven't shied away from scoring goals against opposition as well. So interestingly enough, I mean, just for game week 8, Kane and Son do look like a great shout. But Akshay, you think that Salah being owned is captain material against Manchester City, or do you agree with Gabriel that Spurs are the team to look forward to going in game week 8?
I think if you have Kane and Son, you don't have to look away for any other captaincy options, because Salah, although he has a terrific record against City, he scored the goals, he has the record when it comes to FPL as well. But I think it's safer to go with a Kane or a Son this week. And West Brom, as we have already seen, if they concede 2 against Fulham, who have failed to score themselves, I think that's a clear sign. And another player that could be an essential this week is a popular choice for FPL community on Twitter as well, is Ben Chilwell. So he's nailed his place at left wing back for Chelsea, and Chelsea have a decent run of fixtures, as we have seen, and they face Sheffield United up next, who are not scoring that many goals this season. So I think Chilwell could be an interesting option this week.
If I can say something on that, when we get to the 5-a-side at the end, you'll notice something about Chelsea that we'll talk about something of Chelsea that I selected there. But just to get back to your, you said West Brom they have scored against kind of the bigger teams. It's true. Certainly Chelsea. But if I may, I'm turning to my kind of FF Scout, one of my tables here that I use for my model. And I'll give you, so I guess, how many minutes per big chance created for West Brom? Do you have any idea how many minutes it takes for them to create one big chance?
150 probably.
150? Pretty high.
A couple of games, maybe.
660 minutes.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
Per big chance created. Yeah, how many minutes per XG? 206.
Wow.
Oh, that's huge.
They are actually their XG delta, so the goals they've scored minus the XG is almost +3. So they should have scored 3 fewer goals than they have, and their stats are that bad. So I don't know.
I
I
mean,
don't know what to say about that. It's
when you
uh,
put it like that, absolutely, I've decided that my captain's armband is going on Harry Kane yet again for the next game week. Man, those are insane stats. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to ask Gabriel, who is your keeper? Have you spent any transfers on keepers yet, or have you a set and forget keeper for the entire season, kind of?
So neither. I won't spend transfers on keepers unless it's absolutely necessary. Basically, unless I don't have a playing goalkeeper. And but on my wild card, I will change my keeper. My keeper has been McCarthy. I'm happy with that selection. I think maybe Martinez was the rage initially. The past 2 games, something's going on with Villa. I need to look into that to see what's going on with Villa's defense recently. But for me, I think right now, what I'm thinking for my wild card, I think the best keeper going forward, and I've seen some of your notes as well, is Mendy. Um, 3 clean sheets and 3 starts in the league, one of those against United, and just the eye test, the guy can stop kind of anything. His limbs flailing, legs flying out, making hockey saves. This guy. So I'm buying Mendy on my wild card. I think at 5-1, just really nice value there.
Absolutely interesting point, and definitely with Mendy between the sticks, Chelsea all in all look like a great defensive team all of a sudden as well. Yeah, great discussion on the essentials, and I think we'll move on to the differentials now for game week 8.
Yeah, so we'll start off the differentials with the hero of game week 7, who was James Ward-Prowse. 2 beautiful free kicks, and he has that in his locker. And I remember there was a tweet by the official FPL account that Ward-Prowse could be an interesting option, and the entire FPL community were like, the scout knows nothing. But I think they do know something, because he's managed to get the FPL points, and Southampton as a side, they look really good. And so here's your player, Gabriel Reguilon. Go on.
Reguilon, he's a funny player, right? Because when he's on, he's maybe the best FPL defender in the game, in my opinion. When he's firing, and I'm thinking of basically it comes down to and Tottenham comes down to playing against teams with high defensive lines. If the team has a high defensive line, Tottenham are going to be in a good mood. They're going to have space to run. Reguilon's going to get involved. But in a game of attrition, I think Reguilon has a little bit of a self-destruct button, and I think that's the danger with him. When he gets in his head and he starts complaining about calls or getting frustrated. I mean, you can say this about most players, but it affects some players, I think, more than others. And I think that's the danger with Reguilon. But all the other times, if he were nailed, he would definitely be in my wild card team. I love how he gets involved. He's way better than Davies, in my opinion. Um, and the matchup can't beat the matchup with a team that creates one big chance every 600 minutes. Can't beat that. So I love Reguilon.
Yeah, so Anand, what do you think about Tony Marshall finally back after suspension, and are you ready to rekindle your love with Tony Marshall all over again?
Yeah, most likely. He's playing against Everton, and in Everton, Coleman is injured, and so although Dean is coming back after his suspension was reduced to just one match, but still, Marshall against that defense, I do fancy him. There are concerns about James Rodriguez as well, whether he will start or not. So, James not playing will again impact that team. So Marshall, but we'll have to see, how Marshall does in the Champions League with all these big teams, say United, City, Spurs is playing the Europa, but all these teams, you have to understand that they're playing Champions League as well, and Marshall will start that game for sure. So there will be a good. We can definitely see how he is doing in that match. There'll be match practice for him as well. Apart from Martial, I guess I think Ziyech has looked really good since he's come to Chelsea. Whatever matches he's played, he's putting in those crosses, and because of that, Tammy Abraham played the last match just to make sure that Ziyech's crosses are effective. And regarding defense, I do like your picks as well. But at the same time, I personally feel that Semedo is somebody who's nailed for Wolves. There are doubts over Saiz and there are doubts over Kilman. Whether who's going to start, and now just add Nouri and Markal to that frame. There's a lot of doubt over there. Similarly with City, Cancelo, although he looks nailed right now because Mendy is injured, and I don't think Zinchenko will play against Liverpool because he lacks match practice and everything. So this is and City is group. City has a really easy group in the Champions League. So Cancelo might be rested in the Champions League, and he might come back and play against Liverpool. And Liverpool, they have been leaky, and they were leaky with Van Dijk, at the start of the season, and now without Van Dijk, they will be probably more leaky, and they are going to play against the best attack in the Premier League. So Cancelo can be a good shout, but Semedo is somebody who's absolutely nailed. I don't think Burr is going to replace Semedo at that right wing back position. At the same time, Wolves, they do not have any Champions League or any Europa League, any European matches as well. So they have a good rest. So I think Semedo is somebody that I really like. Yeah, that's it, boys.
Interestingly enough, really good points. I, for one, have Saiz. I have 2 free transfers, which one of which I'm thinking of banking for the next game week when the fixtures for Spurs and other teams also take turns for the worst. So I'm really looking forward to getting either Semedo or Cancelo in place of Saiz, at least for this game week, and spending my 1 free transfer. So really interesting points. Gabriel, any recommendation for me? I mean, fix my team kind of from if you want to suggest any defender. Should it have been Cresswell or Cancelo, Semedo, anybody of that sort?
Well, I would say, is it, are you fixing your team this week, or are you banking it and doing a double transfer next week? I think is the first question.
I already have 2 free transfers, one out of which one I'm willing to use in this game week.
I see. The thing about both Semedo and Cancelo is they don't have the greatest matchup this week. But moving forward, I think I'd agree with Anand's assessment of Semedo. You can't beat like a nailed player, right? So the other both Reguilon and Cancelo may have better stats, and it's a shame. I think the only reason for those better stats is Semedo has never been a good finisher. He'll get close to the box, and then the ball will either like get stuck under his feet, so he ends up scooping it or like chopping it, and it goes off to the side. It's just he can't finish, unfortunately. But I think his XG would be higher. He's in great positions, right? And he's in great situations. So at this point in time, if we're looking at those 3, Reguilon, Semedo, Cancelo, I would go with Semedo, but I honestly think Bellerin he's still, I think, maybe my favorite defender because of the value at 5.0. Easy move from Saiz. You don't have to spend more money. Has who do they play? Arsenal plays this week.
Aston Villa.
They play Villa. Who knows what Villa is going to show up? Is it going to be the Villa that's flying, or is it going to be the Villa that flies the last 5 minutes? Who knows, right?
It's gonna be homecoming for Martinez because it's Arsenal's home.
Yeah.
Homecoming for Martinez. Well, and he's facing a team. Let's face it, Arsenal's attack is not the greatest these days, so Martinez is probably feeling pretty confident. But then again, Arteta is a very disciplined manager, and you can tell he's almost like, look, let's be solid, let's not make silly mistakes, and then we build our attack from that. Now the attack hasn't built yet; it's only game week 8. But I do think that attack will build. I think if somebody were making a defensive transfer this week, I would recommend Bellerin.
So I actually hadn't really ever considered Bellerin. Maybe we spoke about him only once or twice in 7 episodes, previous episodes in this season. And I remember we spoke about him once, and he ended up giving a couple of assists. So I might just take Gabriel's suggestion on getting in Bellerin and saving on the zero point 0.1 that I have had in size before his, his price drops again.
I think another midfielder I wanted to talk about, but I'd rather let Akshay talk about them. So he was talking about, Gabriel was talking about West Brom, but the West Ham boys, suddenly their fixtures are turning, and Akshay was talking to us about this in offline. And what about Akshay? What do you think about Bowen or Fornals as differentials for this game week, playing against Fulham?
Yeah, I think they could be interesting options, but I guess that everything boils down to Antonio being fit, because West Ham without Antonio is a completely different side, and I don't see them performing to those levels without Antonio, because Haller is not the right man for Bowen and Fornals to profit, and that's what puts you off when it comes to West Ham assets.
Yeah,
Gabriel,
absolutely.
what about Benarama? Benarama is another West Ham player itching to start. Maybe Fulham is the right match for him.
I hope so. Honestly, if he would definitely be. So I was Antonio was always going to be my guy. I was planning on bringing him in, and then I had to swerve when he got hurt. Um, and I want Benarama to really get a chance, because I very much rate this player. I think he could kind of just inject some creativity into the team that everyone would benefit from. I think Bowen and Fornals, they have flashes, right? But it's almost like they're not nailed. That it feels that way,
Yeah.
because they'll flash like once in a game, but if that doesn't work out, you're sitting there wondering, I wonder if this is ever going to happen again this game. He might as well be on the bench. And that's what scares me about West Ham without Antonio. But Benarama is firmly on the watch list for me. Hope he plays this weekend so I can get a look, and then I can consider for the wild card next week.
All right.
Interesting thoughts. Really interesting thoughts. Yeah, and with that, I think it's been a great differential discussion as well. And we move on to the next section, the cheapies, the cheap assets for game week 8 in our next section.
So we move on to our final section where we compare all the stats of the player, and this section is about cheapies. Now, this is a very strange season. I think when it comes to midfielders, it's safe to go with the heavy hitters and the players who are priced, fairly above 9 or say 8 million. But when it comes to strikers, I think a lot of strikers are, they've been coming to our notice. A lot of strikers who are like really cheap, they have really cheap price. So, what do you think, Gabriel? I personally believe Bamford is a really good striker when it comes to cheapies. But what about you?
So I've been a big fan of Watkins kind of from the beginning. I was very excited to see him go to Villa, and his initial, couple of games, I was excited to watch, and it's like, okay, Watkins is the guy. But part of that was kind of fueled by a bias, an anti-Bamford bias, because I think somebody made an interesting comparison on Twitter for me yesterday. Bamford is like a modern day Soldado. And if you remember Roberto Soldado, he couldn't score if he picked the ball up and walked it in the goal. He would miss the goal. So, but I have to say, after 7 game weeks, Bamford, he's changed. He's gone through a Calvert-Lewin like kind of development transformation. He's finishing his chances. He's not overperforming his stats. Everything is pretty much right in line. I think his XG and XGI delta are pretty similar, and they're right around the negative 0.5 range, which means he's like right there, right around 0. I think is within a margin of error that this is what we should expect from him moving forward. So of those, despite liking Watkins early, And despite choosing Mitrovic last game week in my column and as my little Prince pick of the week, I think moving forward, it has to be, we have to kind of believe the stats. The underlying stats are representative of the production. And things in life don't get much more straightforward than that. So you got something straightforward, I think you can bank on it for a little bit in the right fixtures.
Fair enough. Kshitij, do you fancy any of these midfielders or any of these cheap strikers or any of the defenders?
So I already do own Podence. After Timo Werner, he was the only kind of an asset who's paid off my patience with him. After game week 2, he finally returned in game week 7. So that is something, and I do plan to hold on to him from a midfielder asset perspective. And also, like I said earlier, I want to make way for either Salah or Mane. And for that, unfortunately, either some of my, I'm not going to say it out loud to give Akshay any hopes. So I might take out a couple of heavy hitters from my forwards, and Bamford for one definitely looks like a really juicy pick. And I would also like to talk about Callum Wilson. He could not really make into any of our, segregations of essentials through cheapies and differentials as well. He's someone who I'm really eyeing on as well. So yeah, Bamford from the forward perspective, Podence from the midfielders, and I, as a size owner, it really hurts that Kilman is the one who might get the nod from Nuno going forward, along with Markal getting fit and everything that is going on with Wolves. So I think Kilman, Podence, Bamford, these would be my picks from the cheap section. And again, like I've been after Bamford, that he's not going to score, but at the end of the day, his stats speak for himself. So yeah, definitely those three would be my pick going forward.
So Gabriel was really upset when we did not put Wilson's name in the stat tables, but you have mentioned his name. What do you think, Gabriel? Is Wilson having a stellar season? And do you fancy any of the midfielders and defenders or any of the cheap keepers as well?
I'm very curious about Podence. I think Podence has. I think there was a lot of hype around him initially, and then people soured on him, and I felt that way just watching him. I actually think that Wolves' attacking difficulties have been because Adama is not a regular starter in that front line, and Adama can unlock anything. But if Podence playing out of position as a budget, he's a budget midfielder that's playing in a front line. It's hard to beat that kind of value. So I do like Podence quite a bit. In terms of the defenders, I see Kufal has been kind of gaining popularity. But I have to wonder, I think people are forgetting about Masuaku. I think that West Ham like to attack more from that left side because they have both Masuaku and Cresswell together that can combine. Masuaku kind of pulls the defense, deeper to open up space for Cresswell that then fills in that left back spot, and Cresswell's deliveries are great. But from these, so I just have to kind of take a look at Masuaku versus Kufal. My inclination is still to go with Masuaku though there.
All right. But don't you think with Benarama into the picture, maybe Masuaku might be benched pretty soon, something like that?
Maybe. It is a possibility. That's why I really hope that Benarama starts this week, and I want to see how that affects the team. I don't know that Benarama has the kind of recovery ability of Masuaku. So if as West Ham, if they're playing that deep line, right? In order to break free from that line, they need Masuaku to go up, but in order to maintain that line, they need Masuaku to get back really quickly. I don't know that Benarama has that defensive instinct to like Masuaku does. Masuaku is coming from the defender being pushed up, but maybe he does. So I don't know. yeah, I think seeing Benrahma in a starting lineup will teach us a lot just about the team, about
Yeah.
how it's going to evolve.
I think I agree with you, especially because Moyes might have to switch to a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 if he has to bring in Benrahma. Because right
Mhm.
now, Cresswell and Masuaku really slots in really well in that 3-5-2 formation.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that works in Masuaku's favor as of now. Uh, I think that's more like it from the cheapies section, guys. And this is the last section is a very special section because it's the brainchild of Gabriel itself. And Gabriel, over to you for this section.
But for now, the FPL 5-a-side is on hiatus, so happy to see it alive and well here in the FPL Escapades. Um, I think the way we manage this one is no price limit, just kind of who you think the best choices are for game week 8. Rather than going 2 defenders, go 2 midfielders, and that's something actually I considered changing the FPL 5-a-side on Twitter a little bit. Maybe making it 33 million and 2 midfielders. But I didn't change it because it was already popular. Like when you have a good thing, if you change it, maybe it turns into a bad thing. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I love seeing a layout like this because it shows where kind of collectively where people's heads are, and it'll also turn your heads like, wait a minute, why did 3 people go with this player? And you see all the similarities, but it's the standouts that really teach you a lot. So I would get a ton of data from the FPL community, just like choosing all these different players and be like, oh, that player, and I'd go and I'd throw them on my watch list. I'd look at the stats. So it was actually quite educational for me, the FPL 5-a-side. So I'm looking forward to getting it back. You want to start? Should we start from the back? Move our way forward here. We've spoken about a couple of these already.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually,
Yeah.
I still remember you said something about when we were talking about essentials, and I think Akshay mentioned Chilwell or somebody mentioned Chilwell. Then you actually were very quick to respond. There's something that you've done in the FPL 5 side, and I see Chilwell here from the Chelsea's defense. So, I
Yes.
mean, if you could take us through about what is your thinking about picking your 5 side, that'd be really great.
Sure. So I'll go through my thought process here. Um, West Ham with their deep lying back 5 is turning into kind of like a defensive stalwart most of the times, unless Moyes loses his mind and plays a pressing 3-5-2, which is insane with his squad and his tactics. But that's why I went for Fabianski. Also went for Fabianski because 2 of you had already chosen Mendy. So I thought I'd offer a different lens, as you said at the beginning of the VOD here. So, and I don't see many people talking about Fabianski. Flappy Hansky used to be one of the community favorites, right? Get all sorts of save points. With that deep lying back 5, he doesn't get those save points. But I think he's going to start with their change of fixtures. I think he's going to start getting the clean sheet. So that's why I went with Fabianski. Now, the Chilwell, I want to pair Chilwell with Timo Werner. So what I noticed in Chelsea's opponent this week, Sheffield United, right? Firstly, they've conceded the most chances from their right side, 37, which is quite a lot. I have the table here. 37 chances from the right side. The team to concede the next most chances from their right side is Palace at 29. So it's a considerable amount of chances from that right side that Sheffield United concede. And I don't know if you saw the Chelsea's last game, Chilwell floated a ball. It was a beautiful ball, went over the goalie, and Werner was right there with the defender behind him. He just had to pop his head onto it. And do you notice what he turtled it? He did like the turtle head, went like, and he stuck his head in, right? So he's never been great at headers. So I expect with Pulisic's injury for Werner to be on Chelsea's left side, as he loves doing, cutting in on that left side and driving at defenders, and Chilwell to be behind him. So those 2 on Chelsea's left side up against Sheffield United right side that has conceded the most chances from the right side than any team. I love those matchups. And then another point about Sheffield United is that they've also conceded the most headed goal attempts by a considerable distance as well. So if we're looking at that, their headed goal attempts, they've conceded 26. Second is Second is Palace again, 19. So at least one more goal attempt from a header per game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Giroud gets the start in this game up at the point there. I just think it would be a good. Well, actually, I would be surprised in the sense that Frank is not a very good tactician. If he were a better tactician, I think Giroud would be nailed in this game. But who knows with Frank, man? He might even put Werner at the point, and then I don't like him as much. I don't know what this guy's going to do. But if logic dictates, that's why I like Timo and Ben Chilwell on Chelsea's left side. Son was almost like a default pick. I mean, West Brom they're bad all over the place, but they're worse on their left side. So I had typed in when I submitted my picks, I typed into on and I didn't send it yet, but I put Bale in there. If I knew Bale were starting, I don't have Son at the moment, and I'm actually going to sell Salah for Son this week. I know, that's a famous last words right there. But if I knew Bale were starting, I would sell Salah for Bale, and I would captain Bale this week if I could. If we look back at West Brom's game against Fulham, right? It was Mitrovic, so in other words, the Kane role, that got 2 assists, which is great. 2 assists is wonderful, but it's the for some reason it's the players on the right side. It was Aina and Reed that got the goals.
Yeah.
The right back and the right mid that got the goals. If Bale is that right mid, in the last 2 games, I mean the last 3 games, these stats are a little inflated because Bale has played very few minutes, but Bale has the highest XG per minute of any player. Limited minutes, so stats are skewed a little bit, but a player like Bale looking to really build on the goal that he scored, getting that start against the worst team in the league in their vulnerable area, that would be Bale if I knew he was starting. And then another kind of positional uncertainty in the midfield, I went with Ferran Torres because his movement at the point is so good that I don't think Pep, unlike Lampard, is a good tactician, I find. So I think it makes sense for Pep to start Ferran Torres at the 9 again, and if he does, I love the Virgil van Dijk-less Liverpool. Just to exploit that no Van Dijk. You have Gomez flying around. Who knows what balls he's chasing? Like chasing butterflies, we say in Minnesota. Nobody knows. He's like finding the butterflies. And I think Fabinho's also hurt, that center of the back line. And even before they got hurt, like Anand mentioned earlier, they had some really fundamental just defensive errors. And I think Torres is going to be in the right places for that. If he starts there, I would bank on a double return for him, I think. So that's my thinking for my 5-a-side here.
I mean, pretty interesting. Right now, I'm like, there's so much of analysis that has gone here, and definitely you've done justice to the other lens that we had to look at FPL from. Really impressive analytics, and I mean, when I look at my 5-a-side, for one, I'm not that into I don't really do research that much on the left or the right side personally. I rely more on the eye test, and with that, I think all of my 5 picks are there. Like you said, Son is kind of a default pick, and so is Kane when they're facing West Brom. Mendy for me has been a table turner for Chelsea. After Kepa, you watch him goalkeeping. There's absolutely no comparison between the two of them. He's actually stabilized the Chelsea defense so much that me and Akshay and Anand were also discussing that maybe to double up on on Chelsea's defense as well, had Ben Chilwell been a little cheaper. So definitely that calmness effect is there. Cresswell, I feel, is someone, even though he is not, does not play in a position where many FPL managers would like their assets to play. He's still on set pieces. So that gives him an edge of assisting or maybe scoring a goal directly as well. And Ziyech is somebody who's, rather than who would have wanted in my team, it would have either been Sterling or Ziyech. Sterling has not been really kind to me, so maybe you can call it I was, getting back at him by not including him in my five-a-side team. But yeah, Ziyech is someone who's really catching my eye, and since he's not that expensive, he's just at 8, is someone who maybe, since even though there are no price limits, but whenever we talk FPL, my mind automatically goes to, creating the best team in a budget or something like that. Yeah, Chelsea, like you've pointed out really interestingly about how, Sheffield have conceded so many chances from the left. And I think should Ziyech start, hopefully he does, might be a great provider to Werner or, any other midfielder, or say even left or right backs, given the kind of balls that he is capable of providing, and for converting them into goals. So that was basically my thinking. I mean, I really did not look at any stats whatsoever. All of these are based on my eye test. Akshay, I mean, would you like to compliment how Gabriel ended up picking his five-a-side, or have you some research of your own, dude?
I mean, when I saw Ferran Torres there, I was really surprised. But when you put the words to back your pick, it makes sense. And that's where you start thinking whether he gets the number 9 position, because there's uncertainty over Aguero and Gabriel Jesus lying there. So I think his positioning was amazing, and he made those runs, although he was unlucky with a couple of finishes close range. But I think he's looking good at the number 9 position, because that gives Sterling the freedom down the left as well. So Sterling as a number 9 is not so good, and if Ferran Torres can do that job for you, I think Pep is very happy. So, and coming to Cresswell, the only reason I put him in, I was also thinking Masuaku like Gabriel, but with Ben Rama on the radar, I think this could be the game where he gets the nod, and that's where Masuaku might be either put back to a back four or maybe taken out. But so Cresswell on set pieces, and Souček finally maybe bagging a goal. That's where I'm going. Yeah.
One thing I will say about Cresswell, he has the second most baseline bonus points, bonus this season. Second to Trent.
Oh.
Or actually, they're tied. So tied for the most baseline bonus, which is always a good to elevate the floor of the player.
Yeah, pretty interesting, definitely. And Anand, talking about interesting, I mean, dude, your picks. I mean, actually, again, your love affair with United, letting emotions get into FPL picks. What do you have to say about your 5 picks, man? Because I'm really taken aback by the picks that you have.
These are the most usual picks you'll ever see, right? No, I'm just kidding. They are different for sure, but just a couple of weeks back, I also mentioned that Rashford could be a really great pick. You will not see stats with him, but just the fact that he started playing out of position, you may not find stats regarding Rashford, but he's been doing really well because he's playing out of position, and United as a team likes to attack as a whole, so that will benefit. Also, why I've chosen Martial here is because Martial is coming back, so it is a little bit dicey pick. I'll not not advise, but I'll not just give my opinion that just get in Martial for all the managers, but just have a look at the Champions League match, see how his match fitness is, and if he comes back to the team. I think we've discussed earlier as well that getting back into that number 9 role, we saw how United did post lockdown. The combination of Rashford, Martial, and Bruno. At the same time, United lost the last match, so usually when they lose the last match, they usually come back with a bounce, and that is where I feel Martial and Rashford might benefit against Everton. KDB, I really don't want to say anything. I think nobody's talking about him, and I think what's going to happen with KDB is suddenly he's going to explode, and people will just go crazy about him. So that is what I feel might happen against Liverpool. Against they don't know who their centre back is. Nat Phillips had a decent game. A lot of people were raving about him, but I thought it was a decent game, not like a world class game for him. So KDB against Nat Phillips, and so Gabriel was the first to actually point out the technical flaws in Liverpool game. I remember he wrote a matchup where he said that Liverpool is playing with an N formation, where usually you do not leave a man behind because that man has to be with his wing backs, in the same line. And if you have your center back too deep, you will fall prey of offsides. You will never be able to make any offside traps. So that is something I remember. And it was really an impressive point by Gabriel here. So KDB is kind of Xavi in a way. He picks those through balls and he's so great. Semedo, I think we've already discussed about him. He's pretty nailed, and that kinds of makes me. Although, yeah, he is. He scuffs his lines, like Gabriel again mentioned. He's not a great finisher, but then the Wolves team actually just needs him to cross those balls in the path of Jimenez, and that's what he has to do. So Semedo is somebody I'm really looking forward to. Martinez, I mean, we've been talking about him a lot. Last year it was Team Pope. I think this season it's gonna be Team Martinez. Okay, do not expect him to save those James Ward-Prowse free kicks, man. Those were they was unstoppable, right? So, but overall, Martinez has always shown since that Leno injury, if you guys remember, since the time he's come back, he's been saving top corner. He's been coming out for those one-on-one challenges. He's being really good. One more keeper apart from Mendy again has been really good. Another keeper is Darlow, who's having a really great season in terms of doing those saves. But Martinez at that price, he's still 4.8. He's just too hard to ignore. He's just gonna rise. Yeah.
But to your point on Darlow, Newcastle have conceded the fourth fewest big chances this season. They're a very underrated defense, and they're just a very underrated team in general. I think nobody expected this, and I think there's a sneaky little pick there. So I love that Darlow shout.
Yeah, that's the reason I went with Jamal Lewis earlier. But the problem with Jamal Lewis is I got him for attacking returns. The people are different in some ways. Usually people bank on clean sheet, but I for someone is somebody who wants an attacking return from a defender. And if he comes at a cheap price, so I remember Jamal Lewis of Norwich, but at Newcastle he hardly attacks. He hardly runs that channel. So that is why I think Darlow is a much better pick if we have to go for a Newcastle guy. But yeah, I think Martin is somebody I would really fancy him at 4.8. It's for me. But I really like your picks as well. I'm not saying that those picks are bad, but for me, personally, Martinez at 4.8 will just keep on rising. Also, just because you mentioned about Newcastle, guys, can you guess how many saves Darlow has already made? Can you just guess that? Some figure. Anybody?
I mean, I think they're in the high teens. I think 18 or 19 or something like that.
Okay, you should just say pass, Kshitij. Gabriel, Akshay?
I was gonna average it between 3 and 4 per week, so I'd give him 22.
Okay, what about you, Akshay? Let's go.
27.
So he has made 34 saves, guys. Wow. He's having a
five
blast.
per game, almost.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
huge. Almost 2 points. That's 2 extra points per game, right? It's 1 extra for every 3 saves.
Yeah.
It's huge. Plus, he's also saved a penalty, so he's high on confidence. So anyway, guys, let's move on. Yeah.
That's a great stat. I love that.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, 19 of those 34 saves came off 2 games, 11 against Spurs and 8 against United. So, I mean, maybe kind of a little skewed because otherwise he's only made 3 or 4 saves per game week. But definitely Newcastle look, like Gabriel mentioned, conceded the 4th least big chances, I think. So that is something to look forward to.
Great. So only play Darlow against tough teams in a difficult matchup. That's when you play Darlow, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely to tell you that. Yeah, definitely. And all in all, a great discussion. I think that that's that for this week's episode. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for joining us. Any closing statements that you'd like to say?
I don't think so. This was a lot of fun. I mean, we could go on for another couple hours. I don't want it to end, but no, just best of luck to you guys. Best of luck this week with your couple of transfers. I'll keep you posted on my wild card and onward. Just stick to the process, everybody. Just stick to your process, and don't get caught in the turbulence above the water, the turbulent waves above the water.
Thank you so much for those words, and definitely for all of our listeners and viewers, hopefully we've been able to provide you some sort of value, and definitely Gabriel would have definitely been able to provide you some value. Go check him out on Twitter at FPL Lens. The link to his profile is down in the description. And as always, give us a like, a subscribe, and share this video with all of your friends or any FPL managers who needs our help or maybe would want to look at FPL from a different lens or perspective. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a good one. And as always, may the arrows be green. Thank you.
Bye.